In this video, I'm going to show you how to manipulate a string that you read from the user. It's a little bit more complicated than the other programs that you have worked with, but the goal in this is to read a number essentially from the user. It could be an 8-digit or a 24-digit number from the user, and to split it into different numbers. So let's say I read a 24-bit number from the user, and I want to split it into 3 8-bits, or maybe read a 32-bit number from the user and split it into 4 8-bit numbers, which is what you need to do for your assignment number 10, is to find the dotted decimal notation of a 32-bit binary number. So we read the 32-bit number and we need to be able to split it into 4 different parts, each 8 bits, and then take it and convert it into decimal, and then be able to separate it by the dots to get the dotted notation. So we can write something similar to that. I'm going to read an 8-digit number from the user, and we need to tell the user if it is not 8 digits that it is not 8 digits and it's wrong, an error message for that. We also need to be able to, if it is 8 digits, we need to be able to split it into, in this example, I'm going to split it into 2 parts, 4 digits each, and we are just going to find the sum of the 4-digit numbers. So we've done parts of this before. You will take this example and you will take a 32-bit number from the user and give them an error message if it is not 32 bits, and if it is 32 bits you will split it into 4 8-bits, so 4 parts, and take each bit or each part and convert it into a decimal number. And in order to do that, check and make sure that they are actual numbers and not characters, so you can actually convert them. And so it's a little bit detailed, and to make it easier on us, I have defined some I have already defined the functions, and as we go through this video, we will write the functions and see how to implement them. So the first function that I have here is read num. As the name says, it's very easy. We read the number from the user. So it says, please enter an 8-digit number, and I will split it. And we read it into num, and we return that num to wherever we are calling it from. Our next function is to check this number to actually make sure that it has 8 digits. So how do we check this? We use a while loop, and we simply say while len is a function that will take a string and will give us the number of characters in that string. So if I say len of num, it is going to return a number, and I want to say if that is not equal to 8, then I want to set a flag. I want to set a flag to a text called error, so I know that is an error message, and then I can check that flag and I can exit the program. So return flag. So flag has been set to an error message if the length is not 8. Now if the length is 8, then what we do? If the length is 8, then I want to set flag to be equal to true. You don't want to just leave it hanging. And we want to return the same flag, because if it is true, then if we don't have this else part, it's not going to do anything. And it's going to return, but it's not going to return flag, and flag is not going to have anything. It's going to be undefined and it won't be good. So if the length is not equal to 8, then we set the flag to error and we return flag. If the length is equal to 8, then we're all good. Then we set the flag to true and we return it. So that's all that function does. Then in the next case, we are going to split the number into 2 different parts. So my function is called split num. We take that num as parameter, and we are going to say first equals, first is just the name of my variable, and to split a string, we do this. We take num, which is the variable of the whole string, and colon 4 says it's the same as saying 0:4. If we don't put a number in the front, then it's assumed to be 0. So we want to split from 0 to 4 digits. So 0, 1, 2, 3. And it will split it until that point and put it into first. Then we want to do the rest into second. So we do the same thing, num square bracket from 4 colon 8. Remember, the first 0 to 4 is not included. So 0, 1, 2, 3. It stops at 3, which will give us 4 digits. Then here we start at 4, 5, 6, 7. We stop at 7, and that gives us the second set of 4 digits. Then I want to return multiple values. So I want to return square bracket first comma second. So it sends me a list of both of these back to wherever I'm calling from. Okay, so we are sending back both of these values, and we'll see how to use them in a minute. So that's that function which splits it. Now you will have to split it into 4 parts for your 32-bit number. Then we're going to do something with those different parts. We're going to do the same thing with each one of those 4 parts. So we can write one function that will take a set of, in my case, 4 digits, in your case, 8 digits, and do whatever we need to do. In my case here, I'm going to simply say, I'm going to calculate the sum of those digits, which we've already done before, if you remember. So we're going to use the same algorithm, set total equals 0, digits to find the number of digits equals 0. Digit is my individual number, which would be your bit. Set that. Then I also need a flag to check this flag that I have set up here. I'm going to have that. Then now I'm going to go through my loop. So first is that first set of 4 numbers that I'm getting. So for x in first, I'm going to go through my set of 4 numbers, and remember we did this before. Try, and we're going to make sure that that digit, this is all taken from our previous program, by the way, we're going to make sure it's an integer. If it is, then we're good. If we get an exception like this, then we are going to have to flag the error. So we set flag equals error, and we break. If not, if all is well, then we do our calculations where digits equals, we increment the number of digits, digits equals digits plus 1, total equals total plus digit, we add the total, and let's go down here a little bit, and we check. So that's all we want to do in our loop. Then once our loop is done, we want to make sure that our flag is actually good. If our flag is good, then we want to say return total. Because if our flag is not good, that means we encountered some characters in there and we had some trouble. So if our flag is not good, then we print not a valid number. That means we found some characters, and so we got an error message from this try statement here, which means we set flag and we have not been able to do any of this. So then it will come here and it will say not a valid number. So that's all that function is going to do. Anytime you send it a set of numbers, it is going to make sure they're all numbers, and here is where I calculate my total. You will calculate your binary to decimal conversion. And with that, let's write our main, where we have our flag variable initialized to true. We need that. Then we have a list, and this list is to get this list of values that our split num returns. Remember, it's going to send us 2 values in my case. In your case, it's going to send you 4 values, and it's sending it as a list, and we need to get all of those somewhere in here in main, and that's what that my list is for. So now let's start calling our functions. Num equals read num is my function that takes no parameters. Once we read num, we check num, and that returns a flag which goes into flag here. Check num takes this num that we just read from the user. It checks to see if it has 8 digits in my case, and it returns true or false. Then based on that flag, whatever comes back, if it is true, then we want to calculate that sum. So my list equals, here is my list, we are calling split num. We are now going to split the number because it's 8 bits, 8 digits. I'm good. I want to split it. So I take that number, send it to split num, and it'll send me multiple values which will go into my list here. And once we have done that, I want to say part 1 is the first part that I'm going to calculate the sum of the digits. So I call calc sum, which is what my function is called here, and I send my list is a list, remember, and I want to send the first value to it. Remember, the list always starts at 0. So my list of 0 says send the first part, which is the first 4 bits in my case, or 4 digits in my case. Then part 2, again I call the same function and I pass my list of 1, which is the second part. And you will have to pass 2 more parts to it, but in my case I only have 2, so I pass those 2 parts to it. And when it comes back, remember, I'm returning total. That total will go into part 1, and again when I call it with the next set of values, that total will go into part 2. And now if I print these values and say part 1, I'm going to do it just like you need to do it for your assignment. Part 1 dot, I'm going to separate it by a dot, part 2. So it's, in my case the numbers are different. It's not giving you the decimal binary to decimal conversion. It's just adding all my digits. Okay, so I have printed part 1 and part 2. What if I had some errors with my flag? That this error is coming from checking whether it's an 8-digit number or not. So I'm going to say not a valid 8-digit number. That's what that error is for. So, and there, that should take care of main. So we called all our functions. We checked flag wherever we returned it, and finally our main itself gets called. So let's save this file. It's a lot of functions, it's a lot of different things, but if you go through them slowly and see what we are actually doing, it's actually a lot cleaner, and that was one reason I broke it down into functions. So let's try something. Let's first try a good 8-digit number. So it says 10.26. So the first 4 digits give me a sum of 10, and the last one, 6 plus 5, 11, plus 7, 18, plus 8 is 26. Now if you run the program again and for some reason you don't have 8 digits, then it says not a valid 8-digit number. What if you have characters? It still says the same thing. What if I have 8 digits but 4 characters along with the 4 digits? It still says not a valid number. Now I do get the first 4 gives me a 4, and then of course I get a none. So it might be nice to fix that for you to see how you can just make sure it says not a valid number and then nothing more than that. So as I mentioned, there's lots of functions in here, but each function does different things. So if you break it down into different functions and try to analyze it, it should help you understand what we're doing here.